In this video, we will look at FieldFox's tracking generator or source functionality. If you preset a FieldFox and you go into the spectrum analyzer mode, and then you press measure, there's a key called source. And if we press source, that's the tracking generator where you get to it. You come into the source menu, and here we can enable the source. And if you enable it, if you notice on the left here, you get the source annotation. And then the next important thing to know is the source mode. And we go in there and we have a choice of CW, coupled CW, or tracking. Let's start with tracking. And you can see it's now just source here. And I have a filter connected between the output, the tracking generator output, and the receiver input, the SA input of my FieldFox. That's between ports 1 and ports 2. When I turn on tracking, this source CW frequency here is grayed out. But I can go into the frequency menu and set a center, span, or start stop. And I will go ahead and set the center to 10.33, which is where my filter is. And let's do a span of 1 gigahertz, or we can do a slightly wider. So my source is sweeping from, if I want to, let's take a look at the start stop, from 9.3 gigahertz to 11.3 gigahertz, and my receiver is sweeping the same frequency. I have a source that's on. If you have a filter and you're making a measurement in this way, you can drop the resolution bandwidth to increase your dynamic range if you wanted to. You also can increase the power level. We're not going to do a normalization here, but you could do a normalization to get rid of the losses in the cable to see the smooth filter if you needed to. You also may want to increase the number of points, to get a better measurements of your filter. So this is the tracking generator part of the CW source. And again, note that if you're tracking the source and the receiver track, and you set the frequencies in the frequency menu, and the source frequency key is grayed out in the source menu. Let's contrast this now to CW. Let's go to CW, and this puts the CW there. In CW, now we get to set the source frequency and receiver frequency, and they're independent. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to disconnect my filter so you can kind of see the impact of this more easily. I'm going to take my filter out of the path, and I'm just, you can't see it, but the output of my tracking generator, or my port 1, is directly connected to my, is going to be directly connected to my port 2. And I will set my sources at 3 gigahertz, but I don't see anything on my screen right now because I'm sweeping 9.3 to 11.3. If I change my frequency to, let's say, 1 gigahertz to 4 gigahertz, and now marker to peak, that's my 3 gigahertz signal. You can see that I saw the signal I set at 3 gigahertz, and these are harmonics and subharmonics, so forth, you see. Let's go ahead and change our receiver frequency. Let's do a center of 3 gigahertz and a span of 100 meg. Again, this is the source that we've set at 3 gigahertz here, and I can drop the power, and you can see the impact. If I change the source frequency to 5 gigahertz, I won't see it because it's not in this range. So the frequency that you set in CW mode for the source and the receiver are completely independent. They're not linked at all. Either one can be in the full range of the box. The last way you can use the source, or what we would call a generator, is what's called coupled CW. Coupled CW has a P there, it's coupled. And here, this key is grayed out. So it's all controlled from the receiver menu. And it just keeps the source in the center frequency. So for example, if I change my center to 5 gigahertz, I see I have a source, the source is now at 5. If I say a start and stop of 800 to 900 megahertz, it's going to park the source at 850. If I do a start of 200 meg to 300 meg, it will put the source at 250 megahertz, marker to peak. You can see that's 250 megahertz. So again, this is in the coupled CW. So we have three ways we can use this independent source. One is coupled CW, which you're seeing now. So the source sits at the center of the receive frequency. The plain CW, where they were completely independent. You can set the source independent of the receiver. And then tracking, where they both sweep. This is the traditional tracking generator model spectrum analyzer users are used to. The source sweeps the same frequency as the receiver, and they're set in this mode. Now, as far as options go and what comes with the box, if you buy the spectrum analyzer option, in a combo analyzer, you always get CW and CW coupled. These two are always included. But if you want it to track, if you want to have the mode where the source and the receiver are actually sweeping both, then you need to buy option 210, which is kind of half of the network analyzer option. It's network analyzer transmission reflection. Thank you.